Hello, everyone. I am Michael Ridley. I work in product marketing at Macrometa. And today I'm joined by Wayne Byrne, CEO of Tangle.io. And we are going to be discussing Tangle and the strategic partnership that Macrometa has entered into with Tangle to bring some of their amazing technology to the Macrometa platform. Wayne, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that. So, I think it would be good if we start off just talking about what Tangle is. So, hopefully, people know what Macrometa is, right? We provide the global data network, globally distributed edge computing platform for very performant real time operational applications. And so, tell us about Tangle a little bit.
Yeah, so Tangle's a low-code platform. I'm sure people are generally familiar with that, right? It's a combination of drag and drop tools to build what you need, but then you can write code at the last little minute. It's sort of the last mile delivery of development. So whereas normally you might get stuck dragging and dropping things around and things go real good and real fast, it's that last little 5-10% where you just want to have that bit more control that developers need to actually build a product or build something of scale. So Tangle is low code, not no code, although it's got lots of no code tooling built in. And it's open source and it's aggressively developer friendly.
Well, aggressively developer friendly is what we like at Macrometa. One of our theses here is that we want to make every developer a hero. And one of the ways that we can do that, and one of the things that's key to us, is fast time to value, and getting developers productive fast, getting applications built fast, and then having those applications run fast. That's the core of the Macrometa thesis, I would say. And so it's very complementary, I think, that you're also very focused on developer velocity. I was looking at some of your materials, and you were saying, I think there was a quote I saw that some of your current customers have saved up to 90% in their implementation time.
Yeah. Time and money, actually. Some of the startups had allocated north of $500,000 to their initial tech stack build out. And instead of going to an agency, the CTO was able to pretty much build up a functional beta and then a full application in a matter of weeks. Eventually, only I think extending the team by one person, keeping it all in house. There's a It's a pretty interesting angle I think coming out of low code, which allows you to near shore a lot more than you
Yeah.
could before. You can keep things in house, which is great. Comes back to the classic thing of the people with the domain knowledge should do the building. And if you can automate and remove a lot of the things that are normally very time consuming, then the people who are closer to the problem get to spend their time fixing it.
Yeah, and I think that's going to really resonate with our enterprise audience because a lot of times, in smaller companies and startups, the domain knowledge kind of is everyone, right? That's kind of the nature of startups. But as you get into the larger enterprises, often there's a distinction between the IT teams, the development teams, and then sometimes the line of business unit is a little divorced from that. And so, the ability to empower, maybe not everyone in the company, right? Not everyone's going to be a technologist, but the technologists within the line of business with that domain expertise who are maybe not experts on I don't know, distributed analytic processing or whatever, in our case, but enabling them to get at least some value out of the platform, and then maybe build the application logic and then send it over to the enterprise software development team to make it more performant or more compliant or whatever. But I think that's where the combination of low code, well, taking a no code drag and drop and then adding in the low code capabilities, and then being able to sort of push into that and add whatever arbitrary, high code, right, complicated analytics capabilities from that framework that the low code environment gives you.
Yeah. We sort of started with a thesis, which was developers should build bricks, and then business users can use those bricks, and that extended into the front end, it extends into the back end, because what we find is that you need a certain amount of domain knowledge to build these things out. It's not enough to hand off to a business user and say, "Hey, here you go. You can connect to any API." Well, what API?
Right. Which one?
Allows,
Which API?
right?
Yeah. Right.
And how do I set up the auth? And how do I make sure that the data gets appropriately mapped? And so on. No, it's going to be very specific. It's like, hey, business user, you can send a lead to Salesforce, and here are the fields you can use. Period.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's just way too complicated,
Yeah, and I know part of what Tangle does is you're positioning yourselves as application, an application development environment, a sort of rapid application development environment. And so with Tangle, I think you can actually host the applications within Tangle and make them available to the business. Am I understanding Tangle correctly?
Yeah, you sure are. So it's a full stack environment. I mean, you can break
Yep.
pieces off. You can do just the serverless functions. You can do front end as a service, back end as a service, all that good stuff. But yeah, it's an entire stack. So you can build an application, launch it, deploy it, self-host it, literally anything from a dashboard to an ERP to a full-on awesome tech startup. Like we have an NFT marketplace, a green NFT marketplace, which is probably the most buzzwordy customer that we've got.
Green NFT marketplace. Go on. Tell me more.
Better, I'm gonna butcher this. Betterverse are an NFT exchange that let people. Let me think. You can buy virtual trees, and
Sure.
they will mint NFTs for those virtual trees, and then they will
Hmm.
plant actual trees for every
Ah,
NFT that you buy, and every time the NFT changes hands, a percentage of that value goes back into planting more trees, and so on. So you've got a virtual little environment you can look at with all of your virtual trees, knowing that
yes.
every one of those represents a real
Is a
tree
real tree. Sure.
somewhere on planet Earth.
Yeah, that's a creative idea, and I think it's a good example of something that maybe would not have the funding in place to do a lot of complicated bespoke development, right? And would really benefit from a low code platform to get quick time to value.
Well, yeah, I mean, the classic development problem is like, I think you might call it time to first login when you look at a platform. Like, hey, what's my time to first login? And often time to first login is months, and as
Yeah,
people came out with these new cloud technologies, the idea was that time to first login would go down, hypothetically,
sure.
if you go and spin up a bunch of VMs. But next thing you know, you're neck deep in one cloud platform or another. You've got more DevOps guys than you have developers, and so on, and your time to first login can extend dramatically. Tangle, on the other hand, time to first login is instant. It's seconds. You switch it on, and you have a login screen, and you have auth and permissions, and just all of these things that are common across any application, mobile, native cloud, whatever it is. We just have that built in, and every customer it gets better. That's the ultimate vision and benefit of low code, right? Is that you've got
Sure.
a shared bunch of components that every application needs. So your login screen constantly gets better, your permissions constantly get better, your workflow orchestration constantly gets better. CRUD is another thing. Nobody enjoys building forms and screens for editing data. That's
Right.
not something
Yeah.
that people.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. The time and capital investment in building out those kinds of user experiences. I mean, sure, you want to invest on the design side, on the UX side, but in terms of the actual plumbing, it's hard to justify the ROI on that, right? I mean, it's table stakes. You need to do it, but it's not differentiated business logic.
That's exactly it. Yeah, I think that's a good way of describing it. So, domain knowledge, differentiated business logic, whatever's unique about your system, we want to let developers get straight to that as fast as possible without having to do all of the really boring, time consuming, but obviously very important pieces that underlie that. And yeah, that NFT app was a great example because they had a login screen and a searchable list of NFTs and profile pages, sign up, all of the wizard stuff. They had all of that pretty much instantly, and they were able to spend their time on the complicated stuff like minting NFTs and making
Right.
really
And
nice
planting
looking little
trees.
trees and planting
Yes.
trees and all of and their
Yes.
integrations and the digital wallet and all of this kind of
Sure.
stuff that they wanted to do. They're able to focus on that and It was, yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty great.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. I used to work in consulting in big data applications and platforms and architectures and stuff. And I remember years ago talking to a executive in a biotech company or a life science company. And, I was asking him about what his philosophy was on build versus buy. And he said, look, we want to buy anything that is not differentiated, right? Any kind of, HR system or whatever. Anything that is differentiated where we can add value and have a competitive advantage we want to build. And I think that, because obviously then they would have something their competitors don't, right? And hopefully better. It would be, the theory, right? And I think that what you're telling me about Tangle kind of pushes that down even into, okay, we've decided we're going to build, but now the build versus buy decision is we're going to buy the capability to rapidly prototype, take a lot of the boilerplate stuff out, right? The stuff that's not differentiated, the forms, the screens, whatever. And then we're going to build the differentiated business logic. And I think that's, empowering because it says, okay, great. Even if you're going to, if you've done your build versus buy analysis and you've decided you're going to build, now you still have optionality around how much do you want to build, right? Or can you leverage automated code generation or whatever to be able to automate and sort of buy some of the non-differentiated capabilities and really push that differentiation discussion down into the actual business logic and say, okay, these are the parts of the application that we want to build, and these are the parts that, whatever, a login screen is not, we don't need to build that, right? If we can just drag and drop it from a palette, that would be fine.
Well, that's it. I mean, if you've got a well-architected, highly scalable platform, and that is often where low code can get a bad rap, right? But, we do. So if you have a highly scalable, especially with our partnership with Macrometa, which
That's
is
right.
very, very
Exactly.
scalable.
Yes.
So if you've got that, then everything beyond that, it's domain logic. That's all you should only be writing domain logic. What else would you be doing? The difference is that you haven't spent millions on some massive ERP system like a NetSuite or a SAP or whatever, and then gone in and started configuring on top of it. Because most of the time, if you hand roll a custom system on top of an existing legacy block, that's what you're doing. And the challenge with those is then those platforms are getting in your way because they're not built for building a custom HR or whatever it is, right?
Sure.
You're having to jump around the business logic that's built in that you don't even want necessarily. So
yeah, for sure. And with Macrometa's customers, what we're seeing is, in the enterprise, they're not going to necessarily rip out a lot of their existing enterprise core systems, but they want to build next generation user experiences that augment and improve them. And so, I think that's where the combination of something like Tangle with Macrometa's global data mesh and our data integration stuff that's coming next year, where you can easily integrate with these legacy or I don't know, legacy could be a loaded word, but your existing, let's say your sunk cost, your existing applications in a way that lets you accelerate and improve the parts that matter and not try to reinvent the wheel. And so I think one of the things that I love the idea of the Tangle partnership with Macrometa because we have a very robust global data network that provides historically we focused on the data storage layers with multi-model database with key value, document store, full text search, graph capabilities, and then we have some great stream processing capabilities with stream workers, and we have this amazing technology called query workers, which allows you to just put an API on any data, and then some of the stuff that we're previewing at Developer Week and coming soon is our compute capabilities, our edge compute capabilities. And one of the things that we're announcing at Developer Week is our partnership with Akamai, where we can easily integrate with their functions as a service capability. And so as we build out Macrometa's global data network as a full stack platform where your applications run, bringing the capability to rapidly develop those applications using a graphical interface with some low code capabilities, really, I think it's a great combination. And I think, we are really looking forward to launching a product with you guys in the next year. Well, not in the next year, early next year, I should say. In the new year is what I mean to say. Yeah, it'll be sooner than in the next year. And I think, gosh, I mean, I don't think that, it'll be interesting to see which parts of the Tangle technology make the most sense for Macrometa up front. But I think certainly taking, so we already have a really robust stream processing and complex event processing engine called Streamworkers. And I think that would be a great place to initially integrate the Tangle technology, because we have a lot of high level primitives that exist within our Streamworkers engine that will do things like pattern recognition and coalescing events and doing in ordering and joining with data at rest stores to really build these complex event models. I would say that our current Streamworker language is fairly intuitive. You can leverage JavaScript and some pretty simple primitives, but the more that we can do to both open that up to domain experts, maybe that are not, not experts in domain specific languages, and even for those developers that are experienced senior developers that don't have a problem with, writing these things from scratch. Still, I think the opportunity to just quickly prototype something and build it out on a graphical canvas, and then go back and add, additional, more advanced business logic or whatever, I think even for an experienced developer, you still get that time to value boost. And so I think it's a really interesting potential marriage of technologies between Tangle and Macrometa.
Yeah, no. I'm I'm obviously a fan. It's kind of funny. We've gone around in circles a little bit. We landed on this sort of flywheel concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where okay, there's these native cloud technologies out there, and you can use Tangle as front end as a service. So you're dragging and dropping, you're building charts, you're dragging and dropping, you're building UI, buttons, wizards, approval processes, all this kind of stuff. But to really get the value of a native cloud system, you need to configure the native cloud backend using whatever technology it happens to run. So, Streamworkers, for example. So the classic oversimplified example would be I drag a chart onto a dashboard, but then the platform will go into Macrometa and deliver a stream worker that will now drive the data that drives that chart.
So I think that, yeah, there's a lot of potential synergy, for lack of a better word. I don't know what has happened to my career that I'm using words like synergy in a sentence unironically, but apparently that's where we are. Anyway, but there's a lot of potential value, I think, in combining the technology that Tangle brings to the table with the, robust data processing capabilities that Macrometa has. And I think, for our enterprise customers, it's going to be a really nice combination. And not only for the enterprise, of course, I'm sure that there are startups and weekend warriors that would benefit as well. Your example of the NFT tree company, I think is a great example of where, one of the things that the cloud has done over the last, 15, 20 years, is really democratize access to very sophisticated software. Salesforce was a pioneer in that. Prior to Salesforce, there were sales automation tools that existed, but they were on-prem, very expensive, and only the largest enterprises would have them. And so one of the things that the cloud has done is really and software as a service is to democratize access to that. And so while, we're thinking about enterprises and enterprise customers with, complicated application integration challenges, the reality is that startups can also benefit from these technologies. And, I think when you have limited investment capital, whether it's an angel round or venture investors, anything that you can do, that I like your time to first login metric, right? Anything you can do to decrease the time to first login and decrease your time to value is a smart investment of those venture dollars or those investment dollars.
Oh yeah, for sure. When we go through the metrics, sometimes we'll find like people are paying us for support what they would have paid one DevOps engineer who would have to look after all of their various different servers and
Yep.
VMs and everything, and you're going to be kept awake at night.
Yep.
Like I don't even remember what Patch Tuesday is.
Right.
It used to be a real big deal, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's
Yeah.
rolling out a patch. Oh no,
That's right.
all the IT guys are on call this week for this whole month because someone
That's right.
decided they're pushing out an update, or one of these super awesome little bot viruses will start scanning around the
Sure.
internet, right? Looking for injection attacks on your SQL or your MySQL box or whatever.
Sure.
As a startup, you don't want to be thinking about that. You want to think about your cloud like it's electricity. I pay
Yep.
my bill when I'm busy, it's a little more expensive, but when I'm not busy, it costs me nothing. There are zero DevOps people looking after it. That is somebody else's problem. And the people looking after it can do it at scale, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Macrometa as well is a platform as a service managed offering, and so our customers as well don't have to deal with patching and security vulnerability concerns. Right, we manage all of that, and it moves the abstraction up. So we have API driven everything, easy to automate, easy CI/CD pipelines for our customers. Right, they can manage their Macrometa platform easily through the API, through SDKs, through the CLI, et cetera. Whatever works for them. And I know Tangle is similarly flexible. And so, for the enterprise customers where they do have and will have an investment in DevOps because they have a more complicated environment, it doesn't necessarily negate those teams, but what it does do is it allows them to focus on more interesting business problems, on the CI/CD pipeline, on the integration challenges with other enterprise systems, but not worrying about Patch Tuesday, right? That part of it, because even a sophisticated DevOps team does not, they don't want to be spending their time on Patch Tuesday either. So,
No,
for
no.
the startups, I think it eliminates that need because they have fairly minimal, often compliance and regulatory requirements and other things that would necessitate a more complicated IT infrastructure. So for them, maybe they don't need it at all. And then for the enterprise customers, it moves the abstraction up and it puts them in a place to really add higher value to the enterprise and not spend their time on the infrastructure management.
Well, yeah, I mean, what you really want to be focused on are things like testing, test automation, scripting
Hmm.
automation, deployment automation, all of these kinds of things that people don't have time to do when they're running around putting out little fires that are caused by things like server upgrades and so on. Right? So,
Yep.
like, none of this, even on the dev side, none of this is about necessarily reducing headcount. It's about, okay, you've got an IT team. They're probably not happy because they've been handed a bunch of tasks and they're trying to play catch up doing things like, hey, can you add a filter to this one grid that we've got on our
Right.
SharePoint homepage?
Sure.
And it'll take them a week to do it, and sometimes it'll break, and people
Yep.
don't understand why. Because, but when I log into Salesforce, this stuff just works. Well, yeah, because Salesforce spent billions of dollars building their system. But poor Dave down there in the IT basement, he had maybe a month to hack that little dashboard together.
For
And
sure.
now it's becoming the bane of his life. I mean, this was actually one of the main drivers of Lowcode, where various different people at companies going off, being frustrated, building internal tools, and then creating startups to avoid ever having to build those internal tools again.
Yep.
It was a
100%.
really really important driver. Now, obviously, we want to take it past that, right? That's why we're open source. That's why we're so developer friendly. That's why you can do all of your GitHub integration and all of this kind of stuff. So we can expand low code past that. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I do think that the future of low code is all about native edge platforms like Macrometa
Yeah.
because there's only going to be more data. Like, there's never going
That's
to
right.
be less data.
Well, there's never going to be less data. And also, there's never going to be, I mean, there's been this trend in these globally available applications. People are moving around the world all the time. Your user in San Francisco today could be a user in Sydney tomorrow. And that trend is not changing. And so I think, yeah, the future is definitely at the edge. The traditional cloud platforms, the legacy cloud platforms are great for what they do for back office, data warehousing, um, that sort of stuff. But the operational cloud is definitely at the edge. So I think that definitely is a thesis that we share with you at Tangle. We share at Macrometa. I think there's a lot of potential and exciting opportunities for our companies to work together. And I know that you've put together an exciting kind of demo concept video of what that integration might look like, focusing on the stream workers integration, which I think is where we will start. But the sky's the limit, right? I mean, we are a full stack platform at the edge for building highly performant, highly interactive applications that are synchronized globally in milliseconds and bringing the ability to empower our users, our developers, and make them heroes, as our thesis is, using a low code front end. Again, we can start with stream workers, we can start with some basic dashboards, and then I think we can really, there's a ton of opportunity there to go beyond that. So I think it's going to be an exciting 2023. I know like I said, we have recently announced this partnership and inked the partnership, and there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to come out with our MVP on what this integration looks like, our version 1, which we expect to launch early in 2023. But then I think the sky's the limit for what we could do beyond that. I'm really excited to continue working with you, Wayne, over the next few months, few years, few decades, and really take both Macrometa and Tangle to the next level with this amazing combination of our technologies. So I really appreciate your time today, and thank you so much for speaking with me. This has been great, and I'm hoping that our users and our developers are going to be as excited as I am. And I would definitely encourage everybody to check out the little teaser concept videos that we're releasing for Developer Week that'll give you a sense about what Tangle looks like and what it might look like with some Macrometa branding and some Macrometa integration. So thank you again, Wayne, for your time today.
Thank you. This was awesome.